Hello, my name is Deja Luckett, and I am the Associate Director for Career and Technical Education. And in this presentation, we're going to go through grant administration for this section, reporting and modifications. So reporting. So colleges are required to submit programmatic and financial quarterly reports 30 days after the end of a quarter. So programmatic reporting is located within the annual work plan template. Financial reporting is located on a separate spreadsheet. So both of these are due to grants management inbox that is located at the bottom, and you can see the quarterly reporting schedule. So let's talk about risk conditions and reporting. So grant recipients were to complete an institutional assessment, the internal controls questionnaire, the ICQ, as well as a grant programmatic risk assessment. So these assessments determine the recipient's risk level. ICQ risk conditions affect all grants at the institution, and grant specific programmatic assessment, individual grants, i.e. Perkins. So colleges can have physical or programmatic risk conditions, physical and programmatic risk conditions, neither physical nor programmatic risk conditions. For FY23, all colleges are programmatically low risk. However, some colleges may still have physical risk conditions. These risk conditions were relayed in your Perkins Notice of State Award. So let's get into payment requests. So the federal funds must be requested using the request for payment form provided by the board. Vouchers will be processed upon submission of grantees' requests for payment form. So there is no limit to the number of payment requests that can be submitted during the fiscal year. Final payment requests are due to ICCB, however, by August 1st of each year. So payment requests in question should be submitted to ICCB Grants Management again at their email at the bottom. So let's get into budget modifications. So grantees are allowed to make modifications up to 10% or 1,000, whichever is higher, of any particular line prior to seeking approval. Modifications that are greater than 10% or 1,000, whichever is higher, of any particular line or require major change in scope require submission of a budget modification request. So the template is really it's in the last page of your uniform budget, so you can see it there. All other tabs should align with the approved modification list, including narratives. This form, along with a revised uniform budget, should be sent to ICCB Grants Management email. All fiscal year 2023 budget modifications must be submitted no later than May 30th, 2023 for approval.
Hi, my name is Dana Nguyen. I'm an Associate Director for Career and Technical Education at the ICCB, and I'll be talking about programmatic monitoring. Programmatic monitoring utilizes a risk-based assessment to determine a grantee's risk designation. Risk is based on fiscal and programmatic factors, including unspent funds, timely submission of quarterly reports and budget modifications, experience of relevant leadership, significant technical assistance needs, and unallowable expenditures. Grantees will not receive a joint programmatic and fiscal report. Reports will be separate as they have been in years past. So for the procedures involved with monitoring, there's three levels of risk designation: elevated, moderate, and low risk. Grantees that are in the elevated category received an institutional score in the top 20% of all ICCB grantees. and will receive an on-site monitoring visit from ICCB fiscal and program staff for a review of all the grants awarded by ICCB during the applicable monitoring period. Grantees are required to complete a self-assessment portion of the monitoring tool and submit documentation specific to the documentation checklist. They will receive a formal monitoring report if you're in the elevated risk category. Grantees designated as in the moderate risk category will undergo a desk review from ICCB fiscal and programmatic staff for a review of all grants during the applicable monitoring period. Grantees in the moderate risk category will also be asked to complete a self-assessment portion of the monitoring tool and submit documentation specific to the documentation checklist. Grantees in the low risk category will receive targeted technical assistance relating to all grants awarded by the ICCB and will not receive a formal monitoring report if they're in the low risk category. So what grants will be monitored? The risk-based monitoring system applies to all grants you receive through the ICCB. So your CTE liaison will be monitoring your FY21 Perkins Basic grants, as well as any Title I leadership grants that your institution received. If the Perkins administrator is not the contact for a specific leadership grant, then the applicable person will be contacted. All Title I leadership grants will be monitored in accordance with their scope, assessment, and deliverable outcomes. Requested information could include the following: budgetary and reporting items, applicable performance outcomes, required grant deliverable outcomes, supplemental documentation specific to the grant and/or grantee. And with that, I'll pass it over to Ian to talk about programs of study. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Ann Story, Associate Director of CTE at the ICCB, and I'm going to talk to you about programs of study. First, we'd just like to take a minute to thank you all for your submissions, your timely responses to revisions, and all of the hard work that you put into submitting programs for approval for this fiscal year. A few updates that we would like to share. First, programs must meet or be working towards the state's definition of size, scope, and quality in order to be deemed a program of study and to continue funding CTE programs with Perkins dollars made available under Perkins 5. During fiscal year 2022, CTE staff began the program of study approval process, and we received an influx of applications. Approximately 173 programs of study were submitted for approval. At the end of fiscal year 2022, colleges were asked to submit a list of priority applications. CTE liaisons continue to work through those lists so colleges can utilize funds in fiscal year 23. Next, we're going to talk about a few reminders to hopefully speed up your approval process and to limit the number of revisions that we ask you to complete. First, make sure that your program includes dual credit. Dual credit is a required component of a fully developed program of study. Next, I'd like to take a look at quality component 3, which is instructional sequence. Please remember to include a list of participating high schools and the names of all the classes that you offer for dual credit. Moving on to quality component 4, which is work-based learning, please remember to address both parts of the components, work-based learning and CTOs or team-based challenge. In order to be a fully approved program of study, your program must have both work-based learning that occurs in authentic working environments and either a CTSO or a team-based challenge. To continue with CTOs and team-based challenge, CTOs that are not nationally recognized can be used to meet quality component 4. However, Perkins funds may only be utilized to support the nationally recognized CTSOs. In the absence of a CTSO, you can use a team-based challenge. Team-based challenges should require students to utilize and demonstrate competency with work-based knowledge and skills as they work to solve an authentic work-based problem as members of a collaborative team. Next, we'd like to give you a reminder about your evidence. Supporting evidence must be submitted with a completed approval form. Forms submitted without evidence will not be reviewed. Your liaison will send your form back and ask you to please include evidence. Please also make sure that your evidence is organized in a way that makes sense, ideally by quality components, or at least it's clearly labeled so we know what we are looking for if we have questions as we review your application. Please also take time to complete the narrative section of the application. This is in the evidentiary support column on the approval form. It must contain a narrative that addresses each component. Simply writing "see evidence" or "see attached narrative" is not sufficient. Finally, a few revision tips. Submit your revisions as quickly as possible, especially if you plan on utilizing funds in FY23. When you submit your revisions, please email the POS approval email address and also CC your liaison. Please type your revisions into the original approval applications and use a bold or different color font. Please include the feedback form sent by your liaison and label and attach any additional evidence. Hopefully by following these tips, the revision process moves a little bit quicker and your revisions get approved quicker as well.